The things you own end up owning you. Tyler Durden. Perhaps the most terrifying thing in this life is not poverty, but spending your entire life chasing things you never truly needed. A job that drains you. A life that society calls stable. A room full of possessions, yet empty on the inside. We are taught that we must succeed. We must earn more money. We must become a more perfect version of ourselves. But Tyler Durden believed that the very act of trying to become someone is what is destroying us. Fight Club is not just a movie about rebellion. It is a warning to people who are slowly losing themselves in a life programmed by society. There's something deeply unsettling about modern life. For the first time in human history, people have access to almost everything they once dreamed of. Instant entertainment, instant communication, instant delivery, instant pleasure. We can order food without leaving our bed. Talk to someone across the world in seconds. Watch endless content all night long. Buy new things with one click. Life has become more comfortable than ever before. And yet, people are exhausted, anxious, emotionally numb, disconnected from themselves. It's strange, isn't it? Humanity has never been more technologically advanced. Yet so many people secretly feel lost inside their own lives. Every morning begins the same way. The alarm rings. We reach for the phone before fully opening our eyes. Notifications, messages, emails, social media. Before the day even starts, our minds are already overwhelmed. Then we rush into work, rush into responsibilities, rush into surviving. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, we slowly forget to ask ourselves a simple question. Am I actually living, or just repeating the same cycle every day? Most people never stop long enough to think about it. Because modern life keeps us distracted. Always moving. Always chasing. Always consuming. We are taught from childhood that happiness is something waiting in the future. If I get better grades. If I make more money. If I become more successful. If people admire me, then I'll finally feel complete. So we spend years running toward achievements, toward validation, toward an image of success created by society. But the terrifying part is this. Many people eventually get everything they once wanted, and still feel empty inside. That is exactly the emptiness that Fight Club tries to expose. At first glance, the film looks like a story about rebellion, violence, and chaos. But beneath all of that, it is really a story about identity, about loneliness, about consumerism, about modern people losing themselves. And at the center of that story stands Tyler Durden. Tyler is not just a rebellious character. He represents something much deeper. He represents the side of human nature that modern society forces people to suppress. The part that wants freedom. The part that wants truth. The part that is tired of pretending. Because the truth is, most people are performing every single day. Performing professionalism. Performing confidence. Performing happiness. People smile when they feel broken. Say, "I'm fine," when they feel empty. Post perfect photos while secretly struggling to feel alive. And after years of pretending, they no longer know who they truly are. That is why Tyler's philosophy feels so powerful to many people. Because he says the things society tells people to ignore. He questions everything modern life is built upon. Status, money, materialism, perfection, social approval. Tyler looks at all of it and says, greater than things you own end up owning you. At first, that line sounds simple. But the older people become, the more terrifying it feels. Because many people eventually realize they don't actually own their possessions. Their possessions own them. The expensive car creates debt. The dream house creates pressure. The luxury lifestyle creates endless anxiety. People buy things hoping to feel more valuable, but often become trapped by the very things they purchased. That is exactly what happens to the narrator in Fight Club. On the surface, his life looks successful. Good salary. Beautiful apartment. Expensive furniture. A stable routine. But inside, he is spiritually exhausted. He cannot sleep. cannot feel joy, cannot connect with himself. Because deep down, he understands something painful. His entire identity has been built around consumption. He fills his apartment with objects, hoping those objects will somehow fill the emptiness inside him. But they never do. And honestly, that is not just his story. It is the story of millions of modern people. People work jobs they hate, to buy things they don't need, to impress people they don't even care about. And society rewards this behavior. The more exhausted you become, the more successful you appear. The busier you are, the more important people think you are. But being busy is not the same thing as being alive. That is one of the most important ideas hidden inside Fight Club. Modern people are surviving, but many are no longer truly living. That is why the narrator becomes fascinated by Tyler Durden. Because Tyler lives without fear. He does not seek approval, does not chase status, does not try to fit into society's expectations. While the narrator spends his life trying to become acceptable, Tyler spends his life trying to become free. And freedom is dangerous. Because true freedom requires destroying illusions. The illusion that success guarantees happiness. The illusion that money creates meaning. The illusion that social approval defines self-worth. Most people never challenge these ideas. Because doing so is uncomfortable. It forces people to confront painful truths. What if the life they're chasing is not actually their own dream? What if they are simply following a script they inherited from society? Study hard. Get a career. Get married. Buy a house. Keep consuming. Keep working. Repeat until death. Many people follow this path automatically, without ever questioning whether it truly makes them happy. And that is exactly why Tyler terrifies people. Because he forces people to confront the emptiness they try to avoid. One of the deepest themes in Fight Club is the idea that modern people are addicted to comfort. We avoid pain at all costs. We distract ourselves constantly. When we feel lonely, we open social media. When we feel anxious, we consume entertainment. When we feel emotionally empty, we buy something new. Modern life teaches people to numb themselves instead of understanding themselves. But Tyler believes pain has meaning. There is a famous scene where Tyler burns the narrator's hand with chemicals. The narrator desperately tries to mentally escape the pain. But Tyler forces him to stay present and says, "Greater than, this is the greatest moment of your life, and you're off somewhere missing it." That line captures something incredibly important. Most people are never fully present in their own lives. Their bodies exist in the moment, but their minds are somewhere else. Regretting the past, fearing the future, escaping discomfort. But life only exists in the present moment. And pain, strangely enough, often pulls people back into reality. Some of the biggest transformations in human life begin with suffering. Heartbreak, failure, loss, loneliness, humiliation. No one wants these experiences. But many people only truly discover themselves after life breaks them apart. Because suffering strips away illusions. It reveals what truly matters. And that is part of Tyler's philosophy. Sometimes people must lose themselves before they can finally see who they really are. But Fight Club is not simply glorifying destruction. In fact, the film also warns about the danger of extremism. At first, Project Mayhem appears to represent freedom from society. But eventually, it becomes another form of control. Everyone dresses the same, thinks the same, acts the same. The rebellion itself becomes another prison. And that message is incredibly important. Because human beings often escape one system of control, only to become trapped inside another. Some people blindly follow society. Others blindly follow ideology. But both can lead to the loss of individuality. That is why true freedom is not blind rebellion. True freedom begins with self-awareness. Understanding your own mind. Understanding your own fears. Understanding what genuinely matters to you. Not what social media tells you to want. Not what society rewards. Not what other people admire. But what actually gives your life meaning. And perhaps that is the hardest thing in modern life. Not becoming successful. but remaining authentic in a world constantly pressuring people to perform. Because the modern world rewards appearances. People are judged by followers, status, money, beauty, productivity. And slowly, human beings begin turning themselves into products. Everything becomes performance. Even happiness. Especially online. People carefully edit their lives to look perfect. Perfect vacations. Perfect relationships. Perfect lifestyles. But behind many of those screens, people feel deeply alone. That is why so many people connect emotionally with Fight Club decades after its release. Because the emptiness it describes has only grown stronger. The film understood something very early. Consumerism can distract people for a long time. But it cannot give life meaning. Eventually, people still have to face themselves in silence. And that silence can be terrifying. Because underneath all the distractions, many people no longer know who they really are without external validation. That is why Tyler says, greater than, you are not your job. Greater than you are not how much money you have in the bank. Those words hit deeply because modern society teaches the exact opposite. People build their entire identity around productivity and achievement. If they fail, they feel worthless. If they are not admired, they feel invisible. But human value cannot truly be measured by status. And deep down, most people already know that. The problem is that society constantly encourages comparison. Someone always has more money, more beauty, more success, more attention. So people remain trapped in endless dissatisfaction. Always chasing the next thing. Never arriving. Never feeling enough. And perhaps that is the true crisis of modern life. People no longer know how to simply exist peacefully. Everything becomes pressure. Pressure to improve. Pressure to achieve. Pressure to become extraordinary. But maybe life was never meant to be a constant competition. Maybe peace begins the moment people stop trying so desperately to prove their worth. That is why Tyler's philosophy about letting go resonates so strongly. Not letting go of responsibility, but letting go of illusions. The illusion that perfection exists. The illusion that approval creates happiness. The illusion that external success guarantees inner peace. Because sometimes, the version of ourselves we carefully constructed for the world is exactly the thing preventing us from feeling alive. And perhaps real growth is not becoming someone new. Perhaps real growth is removing everything false. The mask, the performance, the fear, until all that remains is the most honest version of yourself. That is the deeper message hidden beneath the chaos of Fight Club. Not violence, not destruction, but awakening. Awakening from unconscious living. Awakening from endless consumption. Awakening from a life controlled by fear and social approval. Because life is incredibly short. Too short to spend entirely performing for other people. Too short to become a stranger to yourself. Maybe you do not need to rebel like Tyler Durden. Maybe you do not need to destroy your entire life. But perhaps, you need to pause long enough to ask yourself some honest questions. What actually matters to you? What parts of your life are real? And what parts are performance? How many dreams are truly yours? And how many were handed to you by society? What would remain if all the labels disappeared? No job title, no followers, no money, no social status. Who would you be? That question makes many people uncomfortable. Because most people spend their entire lives trying to become someone, without ever understanding themselves. And maybe the greatest tragedy in life is not failure. Maybe it is reaching the end of life and realizing you never truly lived as yourself. Fight Club does not offer easy answers, but it forces people to confront difficult truths. And sometimes, the questions that disturb us the most are the ones we most need to hear. Because maybe freedom is not about escaping society. Maybe freedom is finally becoming honest with yourself. And maybe the most important journey in life is not becoming better than everyone else, but having the courage to return to who you truly are.